Okay, so like everyone always says, go to college, get a good job, right?
Right.
But like, what's the reality there? What does the data actually say about salaries for those of us who got that 4-year degree?
Yeah.
That's what we're diving into today. And thankfully, we've got some hard numbers to work with from USA Facts.
Yeah, USA Facts is a really, really great resource for this because,
Mm-hmm.
they're all about just the data,
Mm-hmm.
unbiased, data-driven information, which is exactly what we need.
Exactly. Cut through the noise. It's like pure numbers here, no opinions.
Yeah, exactly.
And the article starts with a number that definitely caught my eye. In 2022, the average earnings for people aged 25 to 64 with bachelor's degrees working full-time, get this, $100,311.
Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's a pretty hefty figure at first glance.
right.
But, it's important to keep in mind that it is an average. And
Right.
you know how averages can be. A little deceiving sometimes.
You sure?
But yeah, I mean, it's definitely significantly more than those without a college education. However, it is lower than what folks with, a master's or doctorate typically earn.
Right, so it's not like an instant ticket, but it's still a step up.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's unpack this a little bit because, it seems like what you major in has a real impact as well.
Absolutely.
The article highlights actuarial science majors as the top earners, pulling in an average of over $160,000 a year.
Wow. Yeah, and it's interesting. A lot of those top paying majors, things like business, science, engineering,
Right.
they tend to have a few things in common. Often they require very, very specialized skills and knowledge, and there tends to be a very high demand for those skills in the job market, which of course that's basic economics, right?
Yeah.
Supply and demand drives up the salaries.
Yeah, makes sense. It's supply and demand for college degrees, too.
Exactly.
Now, on the other end of the spectrum, because we've got to talk about the other end of the spectrum,
Of course, yeah.
the article points out that some majors, unfortunately, don't seem to translate to those high salaries right away. Clinical psychology majors had the lowest average earnings at just under $45,000, followed by fields like education and counseling.
Yeah, and this is where, it gets really interesting. And it's
Yeah.
really important to, put on those critical thinking caps and really kind of look at the data here.
Okay.
Because the article very specifically states that these figures only account for people whose highest degree is a bachelor's.
Okay.
So, for example, many people in fields like psychology, education, counseling, they go on to pursue their master's degrees,
Right.
often because they're required for licensing or for higher paying positions.
It's not necessarily that it's a low-paying field, it's just a lot of people in that profession go and get further education,
Exactly, exactly.
which this data set doesn't reflect.
Which this data set does not reflect, right?
Yeah.
And it highlights how averages don't always tell the whole story. You might start out with a lower salary, but with, additional education experience, your earning potential could increase, significantly.
Right, just like any other job, you got to put in the work, climb the ladder.
Exactly. Exactly.
Okay, so there's more to unpack here.
Yeah.
The article really emphasizes this idea of prime working age, defining it as 25 to 64.
Okay.
And it also focuses only on those working full-time. What's the significance of that?
Right. Well, it's all about context, right? I mean, age and experience play a huge, huge role in determining someone's salary. I mean, as you gain experience in your field, your skills become more valuable, you're more likely to get promoted, land higher paying jobs. And additionally, this data doesn't factor in things like part-time work or career breaks, which are common for, things like caregiving, further education, or even just taking some time off.
So this is like a very specific snapshot in time
Exactly.
of a very specific group of people.
It's not necessarily, predicting your entire career trajectory, all the different paths that you might take.
Right.
Um,
So it's not like set in stone because you see this one number. Okay. And this leads to another fascinating point I think that the article raises, which is just because you have a degree in a particular field, it doesn't guarantee you'll actually work in that field.
right, right, right.
So all those years of studying, let's say, ancient history, doesn't mean you're going to be an archaeologist.
Right. Although you might end up being an archaeologist, you never know. But the point is that a degree is more of a foundation than, a predetermined path. It equips you with these really valuable skills, critical thinking, problem solving, communication, which are all things that you can transfer across many, many different industries.
So it's not just about what you study, it's about who you are, what skills you develop, how you adapt to the job market, which is always changing.
Constantly changing.
Right, yeah.
And that actually brings us to, I think a really crucial point that we need to address because,
The elephant in the room?
yeah, well, I mean, the article, it does highlight, the potential, right,
Yeah.
of a bachelor's degree to lead to higher earnings. But it also does bring up a pretty sobering reality, which is that the cost of college is increasing faster than wages. And that's even true for graduates.
Yeah, and that's a big one.
It's a big one.
That's a big one. And, it's something that I think deserves a closer look because
It's not just about, like you said, looking at starting salaries.
mm,
You have to factor in the financial burden that a lot of students are facing.
right out the gate.
Right out the gate,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Talking about student loan debt,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, the article kind of touches on this a little bit, mentions, how college costs are outpacing wage growth,
Right.
which means even though statistically you're more likely to earn more with a bachelor's degree,
Right.
the increasing cost of tuition and the potential for, substantial student loan debt that can offset those gains,
Yeah.
at least in the short term.
Yeah, it's like you're told this is an investment, this degree is an investment, but then you graduate with this massive weight on your shoulders.
It's a complex issue. There's no doubt about it. A lot of factors at play.
Yeah.
And, it's why it's crucial to kind of consider all angles before making these really, life-altering decisions about your education and your career path.
For sure. For sure. Okay, so we've talked averages, we've talked about the elephant in the room, student debt.
Right.
Let's get into some specifics here.
Okay.
From the USA Facts data,
Yeah.
they actually get into like the, highest paying occupations for those with a bachelor's degree.
Right.
For instance, did you know that airline pilots, co-pilots, and flight engineers took the top spot in 2022?
Yeah, it makes sense. When you think about it,
Yeah.
those roles come with a huge amount of responsibility.
Right.
They require specialized training certifications, beyond just your 4-year degree.
Right.
And, that specialized knowledge, that expertise,
Mm.
often translates into, higher earning potential.
Yeah, so maybe we should all consider swapping our graduation caps for pilot wings.
Oh, it's not quite as simple as that. The article does point out that, many of these top-paying jobs, not just pilots, but, many of them require, significant experience on top of a degree.
Right.
We're talking, 5 or more years
Mm-hmm.
in a related field,
Mm-hmm.
which, further emphasizes that this is a marathon, not a sprint.
Right. It's about real-world experience
Exactly.
and learning as you go.
Exactly. It's a, a lifelong journey.
Yeah, so those high salaries often reflect years of dedication
Absolutely.
and hard work and, what you were talking about, putting in the time.
And speaking of, things that can influence earning potential USA Facts,
Yeah.
dug even deeper.
Okay.
And they found another really interesting factor.
Okay.
Location, location, location.
Oh, yeah.
They found that in May 2022, airline pilots, co-pilots, and flight engineers in Washington state earned the highest average wages in their field, a whopping $278,260 per year.
Wow. Okay, so almost 3 times the national average there for bachelor's degree holders.
Yeah.
What makes Washington so special for aviation?
That's a great question, and it gets to the heart of, why location matters.
Right.
It's not just about, one specific state or one specific industry.
Right.
There's a lot of factors that can come into play. Things like the cost of living in a particular area, the demand for, specific skills in that region, even just the overall, the economic health of the state.
Right. It's like a puzzle
Exactly.
with all these different pieces.
So many factors.
Yeah.
And, the USA Facts data, they really highlight this point
Okay.
by showcasing, variations in earnings for different professions across different states.
Sure.
For example, in 2022, chief executives in New Jersey had the highest average wages in their field, while computer and information systems managers earn the most in New York.
So it's not just about choosing like the right high-paying field.
Right.
It's also about being strategic with where you live.
Absolutely. And, a little adventurous, right?
Yeah.
Because opportunity can be found, all over the place.
Right.
And sometimes it's about finding the right fit for you, for your skills, for your experience within a particular job market.
Right.
Think about it this way. Like if you are, passionate about, say, marine biology,
Right.
a coastal state with a, thriving research hub
Right.
might offer much better opportunities
Yeah.
and potentially higher salaries than, say, a landlocked state.
Right. You got to go where the jobs are.
Exactly.
It's all about doing your research.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
And being open to exploring different avenues and
Mm.
locations.
Be open-minded
Yeah.
because you might, you know, uncover these hidden gems, these hidden opportunities that you didn't even know existed.
Right, and that ties back into what we were talking about before.
Exactly.
It's like a degree is a foundation.
It's a foundation.
Yeah.
It's not a predetermined path.
Yeah.
And sometimes, the most exciting careers are the ones that we carve out ourselves.
Right.
But before we get ahead of ourselves,
Yeah.
I think it's important to circle back to that, crucial point you made earlier about the cost of education.
Right.
We talk about the financial burden of student loans, but, for our listeners out there who are maybe, thinking about college or currently in college,
Yeah.
what are some things that they can do to, kind of make these informed decisions? Because it's a lot, right?
It's very overwhelming.
It can feel very overwhelming to try to, balance your passion with these, very real potential financial implications.
It's a balancing act for sure.
It is.
Yeah, where do we even begin? There's so much to think about. Education, career paths,
But it
finances.
definitely feel overwhelming.
Right.
But you know what they say? Knowledge is power.
Okay.
And what we're doing today is, arming you with the information.
Right.
You need to make those, informed, empowered decisions.
Right. So break it down for us.
Okay.
What are some key takeaways from
Yeah.
the data that can help people listening kind of navigate all of this?
Yeah. So first and foremost, remember that while a bachelor's degree can, open doors,
Right.
potentially lead to, higher earnings, it's not a guaranteed path
Right.
to a specific salary or, dream job.
Right. We've seen how, what you major in, how much experience you have, even where you live, it all plays a role.
It all factors in, and this is where research becomes your best friend.
Okay.
Don't just blindly choose a major because it sounds interesting or follow a certain career path because it's expected of you.
Right.
Really, do your research.
Align your passions with some actual,
Exactly. Hard data.
look into different fields,
Yeah.
explore various occupations, and research the job market in, your desired location.
And don't be afraid to think outside the box a little bit
Absolutely.
because we saw that a lot of people don't end up working in their
Right.
field anyway.
Exactly. Your degree is a foundation.
Right.
It gives you valuable skills,
Okay.
and it's up to you to leverage those and adapt to that ever-changing job market. So we've got research, we've got adaptability. What about the finances?
Right. Right.
Because that's the big one for a lot of people.
Of course. And, while we can't give specific, financial advice,
Sure.
one thing I think the data really highlights is the importance of understanding, that return on investment
Okay.
for your education.
So really looking at the cost.
Consider the costs,
Okay.
both upfront and, in the long-term tuition fees, potential student loan debt.
And weigh that against.
Exactly. What are you
later.
potentially going to earn
Right.
in your field?
Yeah.
It's about making informed decisions, being realistic
Right.
about the financial implications.
Yeah, for sure.
Explore your different funding options.
Right.
Research scholarships, grants. Consider the long-term impact
Yeah.
of that student loan debt.
Yeah, it's a lot to juggle for sure.
It is.
But ultimately, you want to find that thing that you're passionate about
Absolutely.
and makes sense for you.
Find that path that aligns with your passions, with your goals, both personally and financially.
Okay, so as we wrap up this deep dive into bachelor's degree salaries,
Yes.
what's the most important takeaway?
I think the biggest takeaway here is that knowledge is power.
Okay.
Informed decisions lead to empowered choices.
I like that.
And that's what we've done today. We've explored the data.
Right.
We've uncovered some of the, complexities.
Yeah.
And hopefully, we've inspired you to really think critically
Right.
about your own path.
It's not just about the numbers, it's about.
It's about you. It's about your dreams,
Yeah.
your aspirations,
Yeah.
and making choices that align with who you want to be.
That's a great way to put it. I love that. So to everyone listening out there, thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive.
Absolutely.
Remember the journey of education, of career exploration. It's ongoing.
It's a lifelong pursuit.
Keep learning, keep growing, and keep diving deep.
Exactly. We'll see you in the next one.